also has a very important task of, again, bringing an awareness of the importance of the family in the world when it's under attack from all sides, that we have the 9th World Meeting of families here in Ireland from the 21st to the 26th of August this year, and the man that's been given the onerous task of coordinating that is the Secretary General. So please put your hands together for Fr Tim Bartlett.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here this morning. Thank you. Sorry, it was a bit tight. Not at all. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a genuine privilege to be here this afternoon. This is a conference that is so important in the life of the church. And as I try to plan with a growing team of people the World Meeting of Families next year, one of the things I keep telling people is providence, what others might regard as little coincidences, providence is happening all around me in all sorts of small and big ways. And one of the providences is that I'm talking to you here today at this Divine Mercy Conference. Because, as you know better than anybody, it was St. John Paul II who, shortly after he graced us by coming to our shores in 1979, almost 1 year after having been elected Pope, and after having visited his own homeland and on the way to the United States to address the United Nations, it was shortly after that St. John Paul II chose the theme of his first Synod of Bishops as Pope. And again, as many of you will know, that first Synod of Bishops, under his guidance and direction, focused on the issue of the vocation and mission of the family in the world today. And it was in that synod that he gave us the famous line that the future of the world passes by way of the family. In other words, quite literally, the future of the world stands or falls according to what humanity, and particularly what we as Christians do in relation to the future of the family. And after that synod, he wrote a beautiful document that many of you will know, Familiaris Consortio, his first post-synodal apostolic exhortation. I often say to people when I'm speaking to them, do you realize that the church, if you took the whole of its history together, the church has never, ever, ever given so much reflection and thought to the issue of marriage and the family and the unique, fundamentally important vocation of those who are married and all of us who are part of a family. It has never given more thought to that than it has in the years since and from the Second Vatican Council. At the Council and then successive popes, most notably St. John Paul II, and his beautiful development of this gift to the church, which we're still unpacking, the theology of the body. And then after that, Pope Emeritus Benedict in Caritatis and Veritate, and all of his beautiful catecheses about the family and about marriage. And then, to the surprise of many, when Pope Francis was elected, many people asked themselves, well, what will his first Synod of Bishops be about? We all knew he was a man who loved the poor, who served the poor very deeply in his life. So most people thought, well, he's going to do something on addressing poverty. Others knew that he was very interested and concerned about the future of our earth, what he beautifully calls our common home. Maybe he would have his first synod on ecology. No. To the surprise of many, he took up that phrase from St. John Paul II in Familiaris Consortio, the future of the world passes by way of the family. And he added to it, the future of the world and of the church passes by way of the family. And so my first synod of bishops, indeed 2 of them, are going to be on the vocation and mission of the family in the world today. St. John Paul II established this event that we have been invited to host, the World Meeting of Families. It was initiated in 1994. The first one happened in Rome. It then quickly established a pattern being held every 3 years, of being held in a European country, and then the next time going out of Europe, and then coming back to Europe again and going out of Europe. The last World Meeting of Families in 2015, as some of you will know, was held in Philadelphia in the United States. Pope Francis inherited that. He didn't choose it. And here's something I really, really, really want you to understand today. As fellow people of this land, fellow disciples of Jesus, living the way of love and mercy that St. John Paul II so beautifully set out before us in this great feast that we celebrate of St. Faustina and so on, and of the Divine Mercy. But did you know this? Did you know that after Philadelphia, it was expected, of course, that the World Meeting of Families would come back to a European city? Let me share a little secret with you. 2 major cities in Europe asked Pope Francis could they host the World Meeting of Families. Dublin was not one of them. The Irish bishops had hosted in this very place, as many of you will recall, the International Eucharistic Congress in 2012, and what a beautiful event that was. So they felt they'd done their bit for a while. They didn't ask for the World Meeting of Families. But Pope Francis himself said to those 2 European cities, "Thank you for your invitation, for your offer, but I want the next World Meeting of Families, my first choice ever in selecting somewhere for a World Meeting of Families, to go to Ireland." Did you know that? Pope Francis, the successor of St. Peter in God's divine providence, something that Sister Faustina believed deeply in, as all the saints do. In divine providence, the successor of Peter personally chose us to host this event in August on his behalf. Why did he do that? Well, through various conversations, we've been able to get a picture. The first thing, of course, is, as you know, some of you, I'm sure, as plain old Father Bergoglio, just after he finished his term as provincial of the Jesuits in Buenos Aires, he needed a sabbatical. It had been a very tough time. I'm looking up sabbatical at the moment for September. But he came on a sabbatical, and where did he decide to come to? To Dublin. To Dublin. Many of you know this, to Milltown Park. And what we've found, the one record we have of that, in the bursar's book is the word cassettes written in for Father Bergoglio. So he came to Dublin to learn English. By the way, you know that English is his worst language? So he came to us to learn English. So whatever English he has, he learnt it here. He spent about 3 months with us. We know he traveled around the country a little bit. He particularly remembers Limerick. Anybody here from Limerick? Yeah, there you go. He's already been there. So he came among us. He spent 3 months among us. He knew the Irish, but that's not the reason he chose us, really. What he's telling people is this. Do you realize that the Irish went everywhere? Wherever the peripheries were of that day, the Irish were almost always there. And if you know anything about Pope Francis, you'll know that one of his mantras is, the church is not just made for the sacristy or for the church, fundamental as that is, the power and source of all our mission is there, but it missions us out and we must be at the peripheries, wherever they are in any given time or culture. And he said the Irish did that. And that's why you have a St. Patrick's Church in Seoul. That's why you have a St. Patrick's Church in Tokyo, in New York, in Washington, in Buenos Aires. He knew the Irish missionaries in South America. And he wants to come to Ireland to acknowledge and pay tribute to that tradition and to speak to the world again, as he has done so often, about the need for the church to identify and to go out to the peripheries, wherever they may be, in our culture or in our world. That's the main reason. One of the other reasons is he knows, and he tells people, because he experienced it, that we are a very family-friendly culture. We, despite all you hear, still have one of the lowest divorce rates, one of the highest marriage rates, and by far the youngest population, life and child-friendly cultures in the world. Maybe that's why a lot of people want to change us so aggressively. That's who we are. And so he knows that we're also a welcoming and a warm people, especially to the stranger. And that's why he has entrusted us to welcome families from all over the world here to Ireland this August. Just as I was coming in, like a lot of people, I had a bit of trouble parking, which is a great tribute to the event. And I met a member of staff who works in the catering here, but she lives in Limerick, and she also works in the University of Limerick. She says, "Father," she said, "we have at least 300 people from Spain staying down in the University of Limerick this August as part of the World Meeting of Families. They're spending 2 weeks going all around Ireland. We have the highest number of international registrations at this point than any other World Meeting of Families ever." That's a tribute to Ireland, because people trust the Irish to be warm and to be welcoming. No one more so than Pope Francis. So, my dear friends, that's what I'm here to share with you today. The successor of Peter, in God's providence, has entrusted to you and to me this great gift, this great request, an invitation to open our arms, our hearts, and our minds to welcome families from across the world. And we will gather for 3 days in this very place for a pastoral congress. There will be panels, workshops. There will be the daily mass in the arena out here. We will have people from Iraq, from Syria, persecuted Christians. We'll have young people. We'll have older people, all giving testimony, all giving talks and experiences. Then on the Saturday night, in a large sports stadium in Dublin, which I cannot name for legal and contractual reasons, we're going to have a great event called the Festival of Families. And this is one of the hallmarks of every World Meeting of Families. It's a kind of a cultural event, at the heart of which is music and song and dancing and some well-known artists. Anybody a fan of Daniel O'Donnell? I didn't mention his name. Anyway, well-known artists singing. But at the heart of that event is the testimony of 5 families from across the world. Okay? Talking about the joys and the challenges of being a Christian family in the world today. And then all of this, as every Christian Catholic event should do, as will happen here today, all feeds into the Eucharist. There will be daily Eucharist, of course, but then the final Mass, which, if the Pope is present, will be in a large greenfield site or park in Dublin, which for legal or contractual reasons I cannot name for you today. The RDS is named, is contracted. Okay, it will be an extraordinary event in its own right, but we've every reason to be hopeful that the successor of St. Peter himself, who chose us, entrusted us with this event, will come among us once again. Pray for that. We're waiting for the official announcement. We hope it'll happen fairly soon. But Pope Francis is telling everybody, especially those he meets from Ireland, "Oh, I'll see you in Dublin next year." And the Archbishop of Dublin saying to me, "You cannot say the Pope is coming. We haven't had an official announcement." Okay? And he's right. You can ask him later on when he's here for Mass. Is the Pope coming? Father Tim said we can't say. Please keep me right, okay? Hope I didn't say anything. Okay, finally, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and your patience. There's so much I could tell you about it. I'm so excited about it. I'm a bit exhausted, so pray for me and for our great team. How can you be part of it? 3 key ways. 1, can I appeal to you? As many people are telling me, oh yes, I intend to be there. Could you go online to our website, just Google, St. Google, worldmeeting2018.ie, or just World Meeting of Families, it'll all come up. Go and register for the event. We need you to register, because I'm telling you now, in terms of the RDS part in particular, it's going to be difficult very soon to get tickets to come to this event. It's been very successful already. And if you book for the Pastoral Congress at this point, you will be guaranteed a ticket for the Festival of Families in that big sports stadium and for the final Mass. Okay? So please register as soon as possible. All the details of the event are online, and it'll keep updating. That's the first thing. The second thing is really important. In the beautiful exhibition hall there next door with all the stands and so on, you will see as soon as you go through the doors, the first 2 stands are the World Meeting of Families information and volunteer stands. We need volunteers. The largest cheer at the International Eucharistic Congress was for the volunteers at the end. They were magnificent. They were the people whom our international visitors first met, who were ambassadors for our country and for our church here in Ireland. We are inviting you, we're appealing to you to consider being a volunteer. You'll get all the details online, and our staff will give you all the details there in the stand. So think about doing that. Finally, if you live in the greater Dublin area, we also need some families or individuals who have a spare room or 2 to host some of these families who are coming. If you're coming from Latin America, if you're coming from Africa, if you're coming from India, the costs involved are already enormous just to get here. And we need to offer the hospitality and the welcome of the Irish into our homes. And our staff will tell you there about to host a family program. And we would appeal to you, please think of opening your home to welcome others who want to be with us for this great event. I said there were 3 things you can do, but the most important is the most obvious one, the 4th and the final. Please pray. Pray for the families who will come to us. Pray for your families, as you do, I'm sure, every day. And pray for the family of families, as Pope Francis calls it, the church throughout the world and here in Ireland, as it prepares for this event. Pray for me, pray for Archbishop Dermot, pray for the team that's trying to bring it together. What I guarantee you is the Lord will not fail to answer our prayer, and one word above all will carry through the whole event, despite anything else you hear, all the noise around these kind of things. The Lord, the Holy Spirit, and the joy of love. That's the one thing I am absolutely certain will pervade the whole thing and will be the lasting memory for all of us who with an open heart take part in this providential, momentous, fun and historic event for our country and our church and the country. Thank you for your time today. Thanks to the organizers for letting me be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. You did a great job.
Thank you so much. The pleasure was mine. Thanks for giving us the time.